We are now joined by head coach for the cross country team, Danielle Todman. How are you doing today, Coach?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming on today. Jumping right into it, our first question. We did a little research. You ran at Bucknell. You were really successful at a D1 college level. You know, not many people can say that. So we just wanted to know a little bit what inspired you to join the Air Force out of school instead of trying to pursue this professionally.
That's a good question. I needed to join the Air Force because of certain things that were going on in my life, right? And I was like, I'm not staying in New Jersey because there was a lot of life situations that happened. And I needed to just find a way to find myself and grow myself. And at first I was thinking about doing the Coast Guard, and, you know, that kind of got funny with the paperwork and the length of time it took. So then I started doing my research, and the Air Force better suited me. So that's where I took the Air Force. And I was still pursuing, you know, the dream of chasing the Olympics or worlds and stuff during track, but that kind of found me through the Air Force.
So speaking a little bit on your success at Bucknell, you do still hold top 10 records in the 55-meter dash, the 55-meter hurdles, and the shuttle hurdles relay. What was your time like at college, and, you know, what did you take away from your running days?
My time at Bucknell, it was very humbling, right? So I am thrown in with a lot of people that are very good, right? So in high school, you're used to being top 1 or 2 or top 3 in your school and your particular event. But then when you're among the cream of the crops of the cream of the crops, it forces you to elevate, right? So in that time, I learned how to elevate and not compete against your teammates, because your teammates are going to sharpen you. Iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. So I learned how to sharpen my teammates, and my teammates sharpen me while being better and winning championships and forcing each other to run faster. I'll give you an example. My teammate, Catherine Trennecost, and I were in the 55-meter hurdle final, right? And she and I were neck and neck. And we weren't the fastest in this final, right? So she looked at me, I looked at her, I said, this is about to be quick, right? But we didn't think we were going to be number 1, number 2 in the school, right? We came number 1, number 2 in the school at the time. But that was the mindset of Bucknell. Was like, we had some phenomenal athletes that I can tell you won Patriot League championship, 500 meters. We went 1, 2, 3, and 5. And I'm just like, what is going on? But that just was the testament of, I don't care where your level is, I'm going to level you up. So I learned the art of how to level up without competing against somebody that wears the same uniform as me. Right? So we are celebrating each other and the uniqueness of how they run, and that's going to, maybe that's their strength, and maybe that was my weakness, but we carried each other, and we used our strengths to help each other become stronger.
And, you know, along with being a runner, you also are a champion power lifter. So you told us a little bit, but how did you get into powerlifting?
Oh, man. Powerlifting came in when I was deployed, right? So there was this guy in the gym, and he was like, do you lift? I said, no. Right? I said, I work out. I don't lift. He was like, I think you could be a good powerlifter. And people in the gym were like, do you know who he is? Like, who do you know who he is? I said, no, we're in the middle of the desert, right? And we're not wearing a uniform right now because we're in the gym. Mm-hmm. So I don't know who he is, right? So then I see him again. He fixes 3 things with my deadlift, and the deadlift was easy, right? He's pinging me, like, I think you should powerlift. Long story short, he gets me into this competition, and I get to go to Costa Rica and compete. Not a powerlifter, but I came a second. And he was like, you gotta stop hiding your strengths and stop shrinking, right? He said, your strength is not serving you in your future athletes who you're going to coach, right? And that thing hit me, right? So then he was like, I think you qualify for Worlds. 2020 got canceled, so we had to re-qualify. So qualified to go to Worlds. crazy performance in the world. Hit my PR, and that's what got me into powerlifting. That was just long story short. But he told me not to shy away from your strength, right? And a lot of times we're afraid to be, right? Because we naturally want to fit in. That's just human nature.
Yep.
But you're naturally going to fit in, and people are going to find you when you walk in your strength of your talent, right? And then that's where you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. You certainly didn't shy away from your strength. First place in the Robert Massey Classic back in 2020. First place in your first ever military national championship back in 2018. You really have put yourself out there, and that's very admirable. We just want to know exactly what brought you to Kean.
What brought me to Kean was I got a phone call. And I met with Mr. Kelly, and he told me that the program we were going to rebuild this program. And I was like, okay. And, he told me to think about it. We interviewed. I saw the campus. I'm like, yeah, right. So did I think I was going to get the job? No. Yeah. Because so the weird thing is I only have assistant coaching position, experience. I have head coaching experience in other things in the military. But in track and field, I have a lot of assistant coaching. So the fact that I was trusted to build this program is an honor. So it kind of just fell in my lap that I'm here. So I'm looking forward to it.
You brought your team to their first exhibition race, and they exceeded expectations somewhat. And, what exactly are your expectations for building this new program as well as your runners individually? And this is kind of a two-parter, but, what kind of values would you like to see your team adopt?
Oh, that's a good question. Ooh, that's heavy. What I'm looking to build is I'm a fan of people who didn't think they can do it, right? Or don't see that they can, right? And I like to unlock the thing that is blocking them from walking through the door, right? And how I envision my team is to not be afraid to try, not afraid to be, and not afraid to go for the gusto, right? And running is those three things, right? You face yourself, you face time, you face fatigue, right? But what do you do when you're faced with those things and you have a team depending on you, right? I like to, as a coach, instill learning how to get underneath the tough, right? And the challenge of getting a team and building a team is that you don't know the level of runners you have. So it's not like going to a school that already has an established track and field and a cross-country program. You have, you see who's in front of you. So I have some experienced runners and I have some brand new runners. So the fact that they trust me and they're like, hey, we're going to rock this program, it's special. And and this group is special, and I'm not afraid to say that because I know it, because I see what they give me every day. I've seen how they progressed from week 1 to week 6. So my vision is to learn to teach the athlete, to teach the runner, to celebrate you, no matter what your level, because it's going to improve in time. But are you willing to get underneath it, and are you willing to go for it?
Yeah, and I'm really glad that you mentioned that. Definitely seeing athletes to their full potential, even if they can't see it in themselves. But not just athletes. We also see that outside of competing. You mentor children with special needs. Do you care to tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, that came when I was subbing, because I knew that I was going to teach, and I knew that teaching and coaching was my passion. My plan was to coach college after and teach after I retired from the military, but that came earlier, so I'm blessed. But I was asked to help out with the special needs class, and there was a kid who was nonverbal. They misclassed him as behavioral. So I realized, I'm like, the only time he's act out is when he is being asked to say things. So I was like, yeah, he's nonverbal. It's not that he's bad, right? So one day he was trying to communicate, and I asked him to show me, right? And that changed the game, because no one asked him to show him like what he was talking about. So he will point at something. I'm like, no, not now, or yes, later after you do this. So in time, we worked on his verbal. So we sat down every day. He used to get like 10 minutes of playtime when he first got in, and then we worked for 10 minutes, and then at time he sat and was easy to, like, he felt more comfortable in a group. So then out of nowhere, this kid just starts talking. I'm like, what? I was like, Georgie, so every day off the bus, comes running, gets me a hug, and tells me what toys he's playing with. When he got home, what big slide he went on. And I'm like, okay. So then after that changed the game. So then I was like, I need to start working with kids. So then that's when it just started, doing it on the outside, and kids just grabbed my heart. So I was like, I'm going to do it now. So that's where I'm at.
And we also wanted to know, what inspires you to keep up with your intense training regimen? You did get through a training session before we started recording, and just what inspires you to keep going and keep pushing towards all of your goals that you're pursuing?
Oh, so this is like a 3-part question. The answer, rather. I can't ask my athletes if I don't do, right? One. And a lot of times I test their workouts to see like just how sucky they are. But also I wear a uniform, right? And one of the mandatory things is I have to take a PT test, right? And as a supervisor, a senior non-commissioned officer in the military, I have to be the example in which I ask my non-commissioned officers, my junior leaders, and my airmen to be. Because I know that if you took an oath, right, that means the Air Force saw something in you to accept you in, right? So now my job is to cultivate you to be the best, right? But I can't do that if I'm not doing my best to improve myself. And 3, the last part is I have a lot of people that tell me no, right? My motivations to coach the way I coach is because I was told I couldn't do it. I was told I was not talented enough. I was told, age-wise, we're not going to take people that are past 30. I know I'm dating myself, but not past 30. But age ain't got nothing to do with it, right? I'm pushing 40. And it has nothing to do with it. So I do a lot of things to show that it doesn't matter the length of time. Things happen. Dreams do come true. Goals do happen. But are you true to yourself to stay the course? Right, and if you're true to stay the course, that's your process. I have never deviated my process. I have never deviated my goal. I had to change my mindset in which I achieved those things, because as you grow, you have to have a more mature mindset to handle the responsibilities of achieving those goals. So that's where, like, those are my motivations to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, because I need to make sure, like, I'm asking my athletes to have the right mindset before they go and do this workout, and understand, like, this workout is going to help you get to where you want to go as an athlete or as a person. It shapes you. Running sucks. And for the fact that these kids took, like, these young ladies and these young gentlemen came and chose to rock with me, that says a lot.
Yeah, but before I let you go, Jish, I did want to ask, you mentioned some of those sucky workouts. What would you say is the worst workout that you that you probably crossed off of the list, or just?
Oh my gosh, that's a lot of them. All right, so running wise, they just did this workout. It was 1,000 meters repeats. It was 1,000 meter. Then they rested 2 minutes. They have to do a sprint. Then rested 3 minutes. Then they have to do a half mile. Rested 2 minutes. Had to do a 200. Rested 2 minutes, and then ran a 600. They did that for 4 rounds. I tested that workout. It sucked. Right? So I was like, and I looked at them, and I was like, yo, I love you guys. But to watch them to actually attack it, and to go back to, like, what I was saying about iron sharpening iron. I watched my ladies and my guys attack this workout. And I knew it was hard, but how they carried each other through to finish, I was like, yeah, this is a special group. So,
and before we move on with these questions we wrote down. You mentioned how you never strayed from the path to your goal, and if you wouldn't mind sharing, what exactly is your big end goal, would you say?
Ooh, my big end goal. There's a couple of them, right? So my end goal for Kean is to make sure that, you know, we are a recognizable force, not just an NJAC, but NCAA, right? In Penn relays. The other goal that I have, you know, is to starting this podcast, right, and just sit down and discuss some of the hardships that people face, not just as athletes, but what do we face and struggle that we don't speak about, and just having up and like sharing wisdoms and sharing stories to help heal through and help bridge through. There's some athletic stuff I'm still working on, that the pinnacle of pinnacles, but we know.
A couple of fun questions that we have and came up with. You do have your own podcast as well. It's on Spotify called #Todman Talks. Yeah. Can you speak and tell the audience a little bit about what started that and what you're working towards?
So what's appreciate the caveat. What started that was just sharing some hardships, right? And then talking to my boy Damon, and we were talking about, you know, doing visuals of inspiration to help people get through. That kind of went well, and we got some good feedback on the videography, and then just started some Wisdom on a Wednesday, right? Because I used to do videos on Instagram, and the people were like, you should do a podcast. All right, let's see it. I asked him. He was like, yeah, it's a good idea. Went with it. I didn't expect the feedback, you know, because sometimes people have podcasts as lessons, but we don't offer simple lessons and gems from our mistakes, right? And just leave it at that, right? So, and that has allowed people to reach out and said, hey, you don't realize how much that really spoke to me. And then I'm a heavy reader, so I'm reading this book, 2 books, How to Act and Think Bigger, and then How to Forgive What You Can't Forget. And that second book is the book that I feel everybody should read between 17 and 25. I wish it was given to me. Because a lot of times we hold on to things that we just don't realize we are holding on to, and then that becomes how we navigate and go through life, right? Mm-hmm. So with that's where I was like, oh, maybe we should do Soulful Sundays and Kitchen Conversations, just to have that conversation about things that we don't talk about, and to help people through some difficulties. That's where it's at, you know. And then each season we, you know, see what happens and who feedbacks, and look at the Spotify for podcasters demographics, and then we were like, yo, we're missing the mark with this. But right now that's how it started.
And just a final question. This is a little bit more fun as well. When we first met you, you were playing some jazz music in your office.
Jazz, yes.
You told us a little bit about your affinity towards it, but care to tell the audience about that, about why jazz?
Oh, jazz. Jazz is the foundation of all music. People just don't know that. But jazz is soothing, right? And a lot of times we have unexpected anxieties, or we don't realize, like, we're in stressful environments, right? So in a coaching environment, sometimes it's stress, and sometimes you don't realize you're walking into stress. And then sometimes if you have people come to the office, that there is a weird vibe. Like, some people are uncomfortable, like they don't know what to expect. So jazz is a soothing music that sets the tone of invitation, right? So if you look at the history of jazz is always an invitation for people to have a good time and for people to be, right? So, and I just like jazz because jazz is cool. Ella Fitzgerald is my favorite singer. But it's just an invitation for, you know, to sit down, be you, have a conversation, have some fun. So.
Do you listen to jazz in the gym? Or?
Yeah, it's crazy. Depending on the type of workout. Like, if I'm running, jazz is in my ear, right? And like, why? Because you have to have the soothing to take you into a zone, right? In running, you have to zone. You have to be in that zone. And you have to have you cannot be anxious if you're trying to go in the zone, right? Because that your heart rate's up. So I tend to listen to jazz as to level me out, right? Even if I'm lifting heavy, you know, because there are days where I'm like, I'm looking at what my coach programs me, and I'm like, this man is gonna have me walking out here dead leg, right? So let me soothe myself, and I'll be sitting there jamming to like lifting weights to Louis Armstrong, Ella, or Duke. So
Right.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for meeting with us, Coach, and good luck to you moving forward and with the podcast and with the cross country team.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to hearing from you guys and see what y'all working with
All right.
in the future. But thank you.